dominant performance by Donald Trump last night. Some states decided to also weigh in on the uncommitted vote. We saw it here in Michigan. We saw over 100,000 people in our primary turn out and vote uncommitted as a protest to President Joe Biden. But Donald Trump's commanding win last night certainly was the story. And Nikki Haley has officially dropped out of the race. What does it all mean? It's why we tapped Dave Dulio, the director of the Center for Civic Engagement and the political science professor at Oakland University. Dave, it's good to have you back.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Dominant win by Donald Trump last night. What does it mean to you?
Not a whole lot, to be honest with you. It's just more of the same, right? I mean, it's kind of been this same old story for the entire primary process. Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. Joe Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee. We sort of knew that. We've known it for months, actually, I think.
Mm-hmm.
No real serious challenge to either front runner, and this just sort of cemented it.
There is now a Herculean effort, I think, that Donald Trump and his campaign need to embark on, and that's getting people on his side. It's not just his base that's locked in. It's the Nikki Haley supporters. It's the independent supporters. Is that something that Donald Trump has to prioritize now going forward?
Without question, and that is going to be the real interesting thing to watch over the next many months, is to see how the Trump campaign attempts to bring back some of the voters that he had in 2016 but lost in subsequent elections. Mm-hmm. And I think that the ability of them to do that is really going to be it's going to dictate the outcome, right? Because there were many people around the country, around Michigan, in places like Oakland County and Kent County, who voted for Trump in 2016 and were willing to give him a chance and see what would happen. And they voted for him, but then he lost their support in 2018 and in 2020. And those are the voters that I think he's got a chance to get back. And I say that because the polling shows us that Trump's favorability right now is better than Biden's. And people are looking back on the Trump presidency in a much fonder way than they are than the Biden presidency so far.
Are you surprised by his favorability rating compared to Joe Biden? Look, and Joe Biden obviously has issues, right? And both I think from a health standpoint and from a political standpoint issues. But Donald Trump facing multiple legal hurdles. Donald Trump continues to. His personality hasn't changed. So why do you think that? Why do you think the favorability ratings continue to climb for Donald Trump and fall for Joe Biden?
Well, first off, both candidates are flawed, right? And depending, and some would say major flaws, right? I'll leave that up to your listeners to determine. But I think in some respects, Donald Trump is benefiting from time passing, where people are replacing memories of the Trump presidency with the Biden presidency, right? And on the key issues, people are looking back with some perception that's different between the two presidencies, right? People are perceiving the Trump presidency as better on the economy and better on immigration than they are the Biden presidency. And right now, those are the top issues around the country.
Polling continues to show, I would say on average, polling continues to show that Donald Trump remains ahead of Joe Biden by about 5%. Let's call it that nice round number. How you talk about flaws. We've seen the flaws in polling over the last, 8-10 years, particularly in 2016. How believable are these polls? How trustworthy are they? Do you find that they really do paint the picture as we sit here in early March?
So I would caution folks to not jump at every poll result that they see, right? And at this point, we are months and months away from the election, right? And what folks need to do is use these as an indicator. and use them as a snapshot in time. They're nothing more than that. But I think, is Trump up 5? Is he up 7? Is he up 3? To some extent, it doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. I think he's ahead, right? And he's ahead in places where it really matters, like here in Michigan. And I think that's what we can use these polls as right now, is they are indicators. They're sort of taking a temperature for us. I think getting into debating whether it's a point here or a point there, that's really meaningless right now. That'll become more important when we get into September, October.
This effort in Michigan during our primary to vote uncommitted, 101,000 people voted uncommitted, citing Joe Biden's stance on the Israel-Hamas war and his seemingly unwillingness to disavow what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing and stand stronger with the Palestinian people. We saw on a much smaller scale last night some of the same in some of the Super Tuesday states, but none as forceful as it was here in Michigan. How impactful is that going to be in this state? Which, maybe selfishly, I think Michigan's going to be the center of the political universe, along with a couple of other states once we get closer to November. But how impactful is that going to be, and what kind of role do you think that could play here in the state of Michigan?
Well, you're not wrong about Michigan being the center of the political universe. We are going to be that and maybe more. People are going to be tired of seeing candidates and surrogates and TV ads, right? And I think the impact of the uncommitted vote is squishy at the moment, I think, right? And I say that because, look, and I'm one who thinks that, boy, that 100,000 vote mark is something to take note of. I've seen others sort of dismiss it. That's a lot of people. And I think, however, it's important to note that the vast majority of them are probably going to vote for Biden in the fall. But not all of them will. I think that to say otherwise is a mistake. And when you combine the folks who are not going to support President Biden because of his Israel policy with, say, younger voters who think he's too old, or union workers who think that his trade policies are a bad idea, or like Trump's economic policies more. When you start to put pieces together, you get to a much larger segment of the Michigan electorate, which spells trouble for Biden.
How do you see this playing out for these two candidates going forward? You mentioned that you feel they're both flawed. How do you see these next few months playing out? Do the Democrats kind of insulate the president based on some of the issues that we've seen publicly from him? Do they really put him out in force to show that he's capable of this? And then conversely, on the Republican side of things, Donald Trump is going to be vigorously out on the stump. He's going to be holding his rallies, but he still is going to be keeping an eye of what's going on at the Supreme Court, what's going on in Georgia. Yeah. So how do you see this playing out over the next couple of months?
I think we are in danger of having a very policy devoid campaign where it's going to the negative partisanship about where it's not about Trump and Biden, it's about the other guy, right?
It's always somebody else's fault.
I think it's going to be a lot of, from the Trump side, Joe Biden is too old, and from the Biden campaign, it's going to be a lot of Donald Trump's a criminal.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right about that. Dave Dulio, great stuff as always. Thanks for letting us pick your brain. We'll talk again soon.
Yep, sounds good. Have a good one.
Yeah, you do the same. Love to hear from you. 800-859-0957, 800-859-0WJR.